Donald and Douglas are Scottish twins. They're practical, peppery, and proud. One day, they were taking a goods train to Brenham Docks. Donald and Douglas were chuffing through the countryside, hauling a heavy load. Down the line, Percy was pulling a sugar car full of sugar. But Percy had broken down. Then Percy heard a whistle. "Oh no!" Percy cried. Percy was very worried. But then he heard Donald and Douglas puffing by. Donald could see the car. "Help!" cried Donald. The driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Luckily, no one was hurt. Luckily, no one was hurt. "Stop being pushy," Donald snapped. "Don't call me pushy," Douglas snapped back, but Donald was really cross. "You shouldn't have pushed me into the sugar car," puffed Donald crossly. "You pulled me, you mean," argued Douglas. "You didn't. You did not, did too." "Stop arguing," yelled Percy. "Just get back to work." "All right, fine," said Donald and Douglas. Soon the tracks were cleared, and Donald and Douglas were on their way again. Soon Donald and Douglas were on their way again. The twins were so cross, they refused to speak to each other for the rest of the day. At last, Donald and Douglas delivered the freight cars to Brenham Docks. Then, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Donald and Douglas at Knapford Station. Sir Topham Hatt had a job for Donald and Douglas. "May I go?" said Donald eagerly. "I only need one engine," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I don't need two engines." "I am only one engine, sir," said Donald, "and I would like to work with Oliver and Duck and Toad." Sir Topham Hatt was very surprised, but he agreed. Thomas was very worried. "But won't you miss one another?" he asked. "I know I miss my coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, and even when I got trapped in the steel work," said Thomas. "I'll work better on my own," sniffed Douglas. "I have work to do," huffed Donald, and Donald puffed away. At first, Donald was working with Duck and Oliver. Donald and Duck were taking some freight cars. Then things started to go wrong. Donald was very cross. "Did you shunt those freight cars onto the other line?" Donald asked. "I thought you said you wanted them on the other line," said Oliver. "Not that other line, the other line." Donald was very cross. "Douglas would have known what I meant," he huffed. Douglas was working on his own. He chuffed through the beautiful countryside. Douglas was taking the mail cars. Douglas didn't usually take Percy's mail cars, but Douglas was worried. He was beginning to miss his twin. Douglas went to all the stations. Douglas delivered the mail cars at Wellsworth Station. And Douglas was uncoupled from his freight cars and puffed away. When Douglas passed by Donald, Douglas said hello. "Are you going to say you're sorry?" said Donald. Douglas was very cross. "I don't have anything to be sorry for," he said, and he steamed away in a huff. Donald went to go do his work. Meanwhile, Oliver and Toad were collecting freight cars. Oliver made his deliveries with his freight cars. "It's fun, Mr. Oliver," said Toad. "Yes, it is," said Oliver. When Oliver and Toad finished their work, they went back. The next day, Donald was backing up to collect some freight cars. Donald was about to collect some fuel cars, but the points were switched onto the siding. "Donald," shouted Oliver, "you missed your train." Donald tried to stop, but he couldn't. Donald didn't know he was heading right into the building, just like he'd crash into the signal box. "Look out!" Duck shouted. But it was too late. Donald crashed into the signal box, into the building. Signal box where it had buildings and barber shop and a restaurant. Donald's driver was very cross. "This wouldn't have happened if you were working with Douglas," he said. Donald knew he was right, and Duck and Oliver knew that they couldn't pull Donald back onto the tracks. So they went for help. Oliver went to go get the breakdown train. When Oliver arrived at the Soda Search and Rescue Center, he was coupled up to Rocky. And Oliver took Rocky to Donald. But when Douglas was passing by, he saw Donald crashed. Are you all right, Donald? Asked Douglas. No, said Donald. I'd like to be rescued back onto the track. At last, Oliver arrived with Rocky. Don't worry, Donald, said Rocky. I'll have you back on the tracks in no time. Last, Rocky rescued Donald and put Donald back onto the track. At last, Donald was rescued and was put back onto the track. Thank you, Lucky, said Donald. I'm sorry, Douglas, said Donald. No, I'm sorry, insisted Douglas. I'm sorry. Don't argue about who's sorry, said Oliver. Just be glad you're back together. And they were.